Now let's talk for a second about branding. What do you want to be when you grow up? How do you want to show up in the world? What's your brand? Somebody was asking during the break what my Twitter handle is. My Twitter handle is BookGal. Okay, BookGal. People love that. I'm like, oh, BookGal, they love that. When I hit 11,000 followers on Twitter, which is not a significant number when you think of some of the celebrities, but I'm not a celebrity, and B, book marketing is not that sexy, right? It's not like I'm writing about, meet and marry a millionaire or something. I'd have 1 million followers. I was very excited. I felt like I was running a village. Woohoo, right? But I didn't get there overnight. It took me, I've been on Twitter, gosh, probably 3 years or so. Everybody will have a different growth spurt. For the gal that I worked with, she was actually a psychic, and so what I told her, I said, who's your primary market? She said, women. I said, what do they want to know? Relationships. There you go. And 18,000 people later, her business is just, quadrupled. So, but the first piece of it is your brand. Because, it's hard to go back, especially, where do you want to be in 5 years from now? Where do you want to be? What do you want? What does the picture of your life look like? Figure that out, and then you want to sort of back into it, right? Take a look at other brands that are out there. Are authors brands? Absolutely, right? We think of some of the biggest names in the industry that we know. Some of the mid-list authors who will never make the best-selling list are also brands. Become a brand. People don't buy a book, they buy a brand. So you really want to figure out what your brand is. Now, here's an interesting little discussion and an SEO tip that I'm going to share with you. When about 8 months ago, we revamped everything. We revamped our website and all this other, and we went through our keywords, because keywords do change. And I was talking to our in-house SEO person, and she said, what do you want to rank for? I said, well, hello, book marketing, right? Not chocolate souffle. I want to rank for book marketing, but there's a lot of competition in book marketing. If you identify the words that you want to use, that you want to rank for, use them on your homepage, use them in blogs, but more importantly, use them in your URL. So what I did was I started to brand, and I didn't change BookGal because people know it and it's easy to remember. But what we did is we grabbed the word book marketing and we did Book Marketing AME, which is the initials of my company. Now, interestingly enough, I was coming up on page 2 for book marketing. After only 4 months, I'm number 4 or 5 on page 1 of Google for book marketing. All we did was we used the URL, and I still use the same URL, I just bought it and pointed it to mine. We renamed our fan page, it says Book Marketing AME. The YouTube channel, YouTube, search engine, optimization, fabulous tool, Book Marketing AME, and we used it everywhere. And eventually, now depending of course on how many searches are coming back, if you want to rank for the term entrepreneur, and there are, 1 billion results, that's probably going to take you a while. But you want to use those keywords. And maybe those keywords now become your branding. Now, I didn't necessarily want to rebrand my entire company because I had spent a lot of time on that years ago. But you are all in a great position because, I don't know how long any of you have been doing what you're doing, but presumably you're ready for a big growth spurt. Otherwise you wouldn't be here, right? So you're in a perfect position to figure out what your brand is. Do you want to is it attached to a business? Do you want that business name to follow everything you're doing, right? I have a book that I wrote called From Book to Bestseller. And then I have Get Published Today, and then I have Red Hot Internet Publicity. And I sat down with Jennifer and I said, you know what? I'm going to start the From Book to Bestseller series. That's my new brand, right? So under that series comes all of these particular books. But, I didn't pop out writing that book thinking of that brand because we develop and we grow and we continue to add extensions to our work and all of this other. So sometimes your brand might evolve, but figure out how you want to show up in the world because you want to grab all those identifiers, like your Twitter handle and your Facebook and your URL. I always recommend that you grab your URL, your name, but I don't often recommend that you use it unless you are the brand. Now in my case, Penny Sansevieri, it took me until I was 10 to be able to spell it. So I can imagine, right, anybody else showing up going, oh, let me go to pennysansevieri.com, because there are so many variations and misspellings to the name, but I do own it. So figure out what your brand is and then go grab all those URLs and grab all those variations. Grab all of in fact, in the Twitter book, there's a website that you can go to that will show you across the board whether your brand is taken. By across the board, I mean on every social networking site that you can imagine, whether your brand is taken. So you can sort of experiment with names if you're kind of coming up with, right? What does your brand do? What do you offer? What makes you different? These are these sort of soul-searching exercises that we hope to never really have to do when it comes to marketing. But unfortunately, I'll tell you something. The more work that you do in advance of this, the less, mistakes that you'll make when you launch, and the faster you will move ahead. I go to writers' conferences sometimes where I see the same writer year after year after year, and every year he's only inched a little bit forward. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that he's looking in the wrong direction. And here's the interesting thing. Sometimes if you refocus, and you know what? A lot of times we're just too close to our own stuff. So partner with somebody who can be objective. Do not ask opinions of family and friends because they care about you and they love you, and they also may not be in the industry. Find somebody who can really be very honest. And I've done some coaching where people, and I'm not nice, but people have not always appreciated it. I said, gosh, kind of not so good. Here's what you should do. And people say, well, this isn't what I wanted to hear. Well, you didn't really pay me to hear what you wanted to hear. You can go to your neighbor for that, or whatever, or your writers group, right? And writers groups are great, but that's also not a really great place to get an opinion, because if somebody can look at you, right? Nobody's going to look at you and go, that first chapter, right? So get somebody's opinion, because I'll tell you something. I can go into a room and oftentimes to spot the successful author, or the author who's going to be successful. That is the author who is taking copious notes or whatever, right? And willing to take feedback. Criticism and feedback are two very different things. Feedback is when you're sitting down and you're like, okay, I want to make this the best it can possibly be, right? Those are all facets and pieces to your brand. And it may take you a month's worth of research to really dig into this. But again, the more homework you do in advance, the easier the final exam is going to be, right?